Good morning. We'll just give a few moments to clear the waiting room. As a reminder, when you are entering from the waiting room, please do remain on mute unless or until you are appearing or testifying before the board. Give just another moment to make sure the waiting room is clear and everyone has connected to audio. Good morning. This is a hearing before the licensing board for the city of Boston. Today is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. Today's hearing is being held pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. Today's hearing is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm Chair of the Boston Licensing Board, and today I am joined by Commissioner Kiana Saxon and Commissioner Liam Curran.
Thank you. And just one brief piece of housekeeping before I go over the procedure for this morning's hearing. Due to scheduling conflict, this week's voting hearing of the licensing board will be tomorrow. That is Wednesday, January 25th at 2:15 p.m. Notice has already been posted to the City of Boston's website. Please ensure that your audio and visuals are working properly. I will call each item in the order that it appears on this morning's agenda. I will then ask who is present on behalf of the licensee, who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department, and whether there are any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify. I will then swear in all parties. After that, the police report will be read into the record, and the licensee or their representative will have the opportunity to make a brief statement, followed by questions by the chair and the commissioners. Again, all testimony will be limited only to those individuals with firsthand personal knowledge of the alleged incident. Item number 1 on this morning's agenda is being continued due to the unavailability of their manager of record for this morning's hearing. It will be rescheduled to the next available hearing date. So now I'll be calling item number 2, Wheelings Bar LLC, doing business as the Beehive, located at 541 Tremont Street. Date of the incident, August 6th, 2022. Assault and battery, staff on patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Jack Barty, I'm the owner, general manager, and our operations director, Adam Tivnan.
Thank you very much. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Michael Sullivan.
Thank you, Sergeant Sullivan. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Yes, and Officer Henriquez.
Thank you very much. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sergeant Sullivan, you may please proceed with the police report.
Officer Henriquez authored the original police report. Would you like to hear that first?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Perfect. So the original police report goes as follows. About 12:52 a.m. on Saturday, August 6, 2022, Officer Henriquez in the 431 and Sergeant Sullivan in the Delta 912 responded to a radio call for an investigate premise at 541 Tremont Street, South End Beehive Restaurant. Prior to arrival, officers were informed through CAD notes that the caller, identified as Riley Doherty, date of birth 8/24/1985, was mistreated and spat on by the staff of the Beehive Restaurant in the back alley. The caller, Doherty, also stated there was a fight at the above location. Assisting units were Officer Sweeney, Feeney, Delta 103, Jenner, 411, Marty Niles, 441, and Officer Foley, 421 Alpha. Upon arrival, officers separated all parties. Officers spoke with the caller, Doherty, who stated that her and her boyfriend, identified as James Hartofelis, date of birth 3/29/1978, were getting kicked out of the Beehive Restaurant when security staff, later identified as Hassan Hinson, date of birth 3/12/1982, and Raymond Dunn, date of birth 8/2/1982, became physically aggressive towards Mr. Hartofelis. While the fight between Mr. Hartofelis and security staff was taking place, Miss Doherty was in the back alley of the restaurant with staff in search of Mr. Hartofelis and clarified she was not spat on, but she was getting yelled at by staff and spit accidentally got on her face. Ms. Doherty also stated she was being accused of saying racial slurs. Officers spoke with Mr. Hartefelis, who stated he had no injuries. Mr. Hartefelis stated he was assaulted by security staff out front of the restaurant when a stranger, later identified as John Arno, attempted to help Mr. Hartefelis. Officers could smell a strong odor of alcohol emanating from Mr. Hartefelis. Mr. Hartefelis stated they are lucky I didn't kill them. Officers spoke with Mr. John Arno, who stated he had dislocated his right shoulder in the fight with security staff. Officers also observed redness in Mr. Arno's neck area. Boston EMS, Price, Joyce arrived on scene and transported Mr. Arno to Brigham and Women's Hospital. Beehive restaurant manager Dominic Dove spoke with officers and stated staff had to kick out the couple due to them being heavily intoxicated and climbing on stage with the live band. The restaurant has a strict policy of customers getting on stage with the band due to liability issues. While Mr. Hartefelis was being escorted outside by security staff, Mr. Hartefelis made threats to kill the security staff. When Mr. Hartefelis and security staff got out front of the restaurant, pushing and bystander Arno jumped in. While the fight ensued, Mr. Dove escorted Miss Doherty out the side door, leading her to the back alley. Sergeant Sullivan conducted a licensed premise inspection notice for 043004 of the establishment.
Thank you very much. And Sergeant Sullivan, we have a supplemental as well.
We do, it's brief. At about 1:10 a.m. on Saturday, 8/6/22, I conducted a licensed premise inspection at 541 Tremont Street, the Beehive. I arrived on scene after a 911 call for service was generated by a female party alleging an assault. I met with Dominic Dove, the manager of the Beehive, and conducted a licensed premise inspection. It's a code 35 for the Boston Police at about 1:15 a.m. I found Mr. Dove and the staff to be cooperative and the license to be conspicuously posted. I did issue a license premise inspection notice 043004 before leaving. That is all.
Great. Thank you very much. Great. Thank you. Mr. Barty or Mr. Tivenin, would you like to address the alleged incident?
I'll address it, sir.
Thank you.
Yep. So it was right around 12:30 in the Beehive when we are closing, and the couple were jumping onto the stage, which we do not allow. We also do not allow dancing in the premises. We asked them nicely to step away from the stage. When the male said, "Hey, I'm going to kill you all," at that point, we kindly asked them it's time to leave, to bring them up the stairwell with our door hosts. We don't touch anyone in our building. We've been there for 17 years. We don't have issues like this. We brought them up to the top where one of them ran right back down and saying that they lost their phone. The manager came down and said, "Unfortunately, we can't help you find
The
your phone."
gentleman, that was the gentleman that ran.
Yes, the gentleman. Sorry, and he proceeded to run around the building and then take off out the back door as we had his girlfriend at the front. And there, situation where we had her outside. She now didn't know where she was. She said, "I would like to call the police." We said, "You're more than welcome." And then police were called as we went around the corner to find the boyfriend running up the alleyway as the door guys were holding the area around to make sure he didn't come back down. A man that we don't even know came out of Clarendon and ensued a fight with everybody. And at that point, that is when the police arrived, and then everything had kind of transpired on what you guys have spoken about.
Thank you. Anything further from the licensee, or shall we move to questions from the board? Anything further, Mr. Tivenin or Mr. Barty?
No.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions?
I do. How long were these patrons inside the establishment?
I can't give you the exact number. I would say they came in at the last end of the night, so probably right around a half an hour before our closing hours.
And they weren't there to have dinner. They were there just to listen to the music?
From what we can transpire, yes. I can't tell if they had dinner or not. They were there at the end.
Okay. And do you know if they consumed any alcohol while they were there?
Based on what my bar manager, he said he did not serve them.
Okay, can you just explain to me, they jumped on the stage and then what did you do once that happened? Who went and got them off the stage?
So our manager went and approached them and said, it was at the end of the night. The band was actually finished as they jumped back onto the stage. And we said, unfortunately, you can't come back on the stage. They were trying to pay the band to go back on again, which would be against our policy and obviously the law of music. So we asked them nicely we don't touch anyone in our building. It's just not our culture. It's never been that way. We asked them nicely, and that's when, the man got really volatile. He also said some racial slurs, and we just said nicely, it is time to move outside.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. Commissioners, do you?
Did anyone from your staff call the police?
No.
Okay, and can you describe to me why that didn't happen? Because it did get physical outside, right?
Not with us. The part about the story is a random bystander, as we were removing them, came out of nowhere and sued. And I can't say that he was intoxicated or not. I was not, that part I can't speak of, but decided to become a, civil servant into a situation after he'd been out somewhere else. So that's wherever the whole turmoil came in, is then the manager and the two guys wanted to go back inside and leave it out there with the patrons that were in our building. The other third party, we don't even know where he came from.
But we also know that the lady had called the police as well. Even before that happened, she had called the police when her boyfriend was in, when he went back to look for was it his phone?
It was his phone, yes.
So
And
even prior to getting outside, she has announced that she's calling the police.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
Did either couple or did either person exhibit any troublesome behavior before they jumped on stage?
No, it was just that, that high energy that some people have, and coming into the city for one of their first times and stating they were from New Hampshire and it was away from their kids, and that was why they were acting the way they did, trying to buy the band to come play more music. That was it. They wasn't like they were problematic at all before.
Any further questions from the board? Okay, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 3, Paga Inc. doing business as Icon located at 100B Warrenton Street. Date of the incident, September 3rd, 2022. Assault and battery, employee on patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Attorney Mark Evliades is present for Paga Inc. doing business as Icon at 100 Warrenton Street. With me should be on now Shirok Reza, who is the Director of Operations, William Robinson, who is the Manager of Record, and George Monroe, who was the security personnel who was at the actual location during the incident.
Great, thank you very much. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Either Sergeant McHale or Officer Chan, if not, Lieutenant Detective Troy.
Thank you. I'm just looking to see if either of them are, no, it looks like it will be you, Lieutenant Troy. Thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Thank you. Can you all please, if you do plan to testify, make sure your camera is on and please raise your right hand. Great. Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Lieutenant Detective Troy, you may please proceed with the police report.
Reading from the police report authored by Officer Derek Chan reads as follows. At 12:56 on Saturday, September 3rd, 2022, Officers Chan and Drew responded to a radio call for an assault in progress at 100 Warrington Street, Club Icon. Also assisting was Sergeant McHale. On arrival, officers were approached by Maya Cook and Deanna Cook, who appeared to be crying and visibly upset. Miss Maya Cook was grasping onto her right arm, stating that a bouncer injured her arm. Miss Deanna Cook stated that they were inside the Club Icon dancing when a male approached them, telling them to stop fighting. Miss Deanna Cook reported telling the male that they weren't fighting, just friends. Miss Deanna Cook stated the male told them they were getting kicked out and started to shove them. Miss Maya Cook stated she was grabbed so hard her shoes fell off. Miss Maya Cook stated that she was trying to grab her shoe when she was continuously being shoved. Ms. Deanna Cook reported that once they were escorted outside, they were pushed to the ground. Ms. Deanna Cook reported her left arm was bruised from the incident. Officer spoke to the manager, Sharuk Risa, and nightclub security, George Monroe, who moved the patrons. Mr. Monroe stated to the officers that he was standing on the stage observing the crowd when he observed two females play fighting in the middle of the crowd. Mr. Monroe reported telling the females to stop, but the females did not listen, stated they can do whatever they want to do. Monroe stated that he told the females to step outside, and they replied, "We aren't going anywhere." Monroe stated that he was walking towards the door. The female wearing green attempted to hit them and then fell onto her friend. Officers observed Miss Maya Cook to be wearing a green dress. Mr. Monroe stated that he grabbed their arm to help her stand off the ground. Once outside, Mr. Monroe reported that one of the females tried to grab his tie, causing them to fall to the ground. Ambulance 1 responded to the scene to evaluate Miss Maya Cook and Miss Deanna Cook, both declining further medical treatment. Sergeant McHale responded to issue a license premise violation to Club Icon. Sergeant McHale cited Club Icon for assault and battery employee on patron, which was signed for by the manager, Sharuk Risa. That's the extent of the police report.
Thank you very much. Attorney Evliades, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, first of all, Lieutenant Detective Troy, you weren't there at the night of the incident, were you?
No, I was not.
So you have no firsthand knowledge of what happened, didn't see what happened, didn't interview anybody who was there?
As I said, I wasn't there.
Okay, very good. I'd like to ask the security personnel that was on scene, George Monroe, are you available? Are you on speaker now?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Very good. So were you working the night of the incident?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And how long have you worked at Icon Paga?
I've worked there for about 10 years.
And do you remember the incident clearly?
Yes, I do.
Where were you when this happened?
So I was stationed on the stage where I can oversee the entire floor.
Okay. And what did you see happen between the alleged victims?
So there were actually 3 females in when I was on stage, I noticed 3 of the girls jabbing each other and pushing each other. And at first I thought they were dancing because it's kind of hazy and dark. But then I realized that they're pushing each other, they're not just hitting each other, they're hitting other people around them.
When you say other people around them, you mean other patrons who were on the dance floor as well?
Yes.
So you viewed them hitting other patrons?
Yes.
Okay. What did you do at that time?
So at that time, I asked them to stop from where I was standing. I figured if I asked them from where I am, I don't have to get down and speak to them, up close and personal. I just asked them to stop, put my hands up because I know the music is very loud. Put my hands up, stop. And then that's when they looked at me and they continued to proceed on hitting each other again.
Okay. And at some point, did you leave the stage to address them more closely?
Yes.
And what happened?
Immediately, as soon as they continued to hit each other again, I had to leave the stage and ask them, I tell them they have to stop hitting each other and hitting other people.
Okay. And did you see them hit other people?
Yes, I did.
Was there any reaction from the other people?
Yes, there was. So there was a patron that was behind them. They hit a girl that was not involved with them at all. And she was visibly upset and she wanted to go after the girl. Her boyfriend grabbed her and he told me, he said, "Can you take care of that?" I said, "You take care of her, I'll take care of these 3. And I told the other 3 girls, I said, "You guys have to stop. You guys cannot hit each other or because you're not alone in the club." So one of the girls, as soon as I said this, she stopped immediately and she just moved away. The other 2 continued, said, "We can do whatever we want." And they started hitting each other again. And in the process of doing this, that's when another person got hit. So I stepped in between and I said, "Okay, I need you guys to step outside."
All right. So what was their response when you told them to step outside?
So one of the girls said, okay, fine. So she started to move, she started to walk. When I said in between, she started to move towards the door. And while we took a few steps, other bouncers were coming over, and since they saw us moving towards the door, they made room for us to get through the club, which made things much easier. While we're moving towards the door, I turned and looked, and that's when I saw the other girl coming towards me, and she swung at me, which I thought was kind of strange, and she missed, and she fell over on top of her friend.
And what did you do then?
She started to reach up, so I grasped her by her hand, helped her stand up. I said, ladies, I need you to move towards the door, please. And that girl was very belligerent and was calling me all types of names in the book. I said, it doesn't matter, man. I need you to walk towards it, keep moving towards the door. And in the process, I'm trying to keep them from not, hitting more people on the way out the door. So we have the entire area kind of cornered through the crowd so that they can only have one direction to go in.
Okay, and did you finally get them outside?
Yes, when I got them by the stairs, I told the girls, watch out for the stairs. And one of the girls turned around and they tumbled down the stairs. And in the process of them trying to get up, one of the girls grabbed me by the tie and pulled herself up.
Okay, and at any time, did you hit any of these women?
No.
Grab them aggressively?
No.
Okay, and when you got them outside, what was their response once they were outside the club?
We're gonna tell everybody you touched us.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Monroe. I'd like to ask Mr. Shirok Reza, the Director of Operations, if he could answer a few questions at this moment, unless the board wants to question Mr. Monroe now.
I just have one question. Is there video of this or anything?
We don't believe there is. I can check with the owners of the club and check. This happened, my understanding was on September 3rd, 2022. So I can check to see if we have any video of this. And if
Okay.
we do, of course, we'll have it to you as quickly as possible.
Okay, I'm just going to ask if Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon have any questions for Mr. Monroe.
I do not.
Not right now, thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Galatas. You may continue with your next witness.
Thank you. As the next witness, I'd like to call Mr. Shirok Reza.
Good morning.
Good morning. What is your title at Paga Inc.?
I'm the Director of Operations.
How long have you worked there?
21 years.
And were you working on the night in question?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And at some point in time after this incident, did you conduct a internal investigation as to what happened?
Yes, we did.
And you questioned
And-
people who were involved?
Yes, and we found out, like, we immediately looked into it that night, anticipating the Boston police requiring answers. So I called Mr. Monroe and got the story from him. Or they were basically trying to do mosh pit, or throw each other around the dance floor, and as a result, they were hitting other people. They were asked to please stop, and not only they didn't stop, they turned around and says, we're not stopping, we're just friends, we're just having fun. And Mr. Monroe told them, well, you're affecting other people, you're hitting other people. And then the rest of it, as Mr. Monroe explained, went on. And when the
Let me ask you,
Boston police showed up,
Does Paga Inc. have a policy as far as quote unquote mosh pitting or play fighting on the dance floor or anywhere in the club?
zero tolerance for it. It's not that kind of a place that we have like raves or anything like that. It's dancing for everybody. It's supposed to be a good time and enjoying themselves. It's just not tolerated.
Okay, and on the night in question, you were there as a manager. Did you cooperate with the police officers?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you answer all their questions?
Yes, we did.
Okay. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to the incident that happened that night?
I'm just going back to Madam Commissioner requesting the video. I believe there is a small clip that shows the interaction on the dance floor, and I will certainly look into that and have it for them in the next day or two.
Unless the commission has any questions for Mr. Reza, I'd like to call the next witness.
Sure.
I call Mr. William Robinson. He is the manager of record, if he's available. Billy, are you there? You got to unmute yourself, I think.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, Billy.
Okay,
Can you state your name for the record?
William Robinson.
And are you the manager of record for Paga Inc.?
Yes, I am.
And were you working on the night in question?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, and how long have you worked at Icon?
About 11 years.
Okay, and what did you do prior to that?
I was in the Boston Police Department.
For how many years?
33.
Okay, and were you made aware at some point of the circumstances surrounding the event on September 3rd, 2022?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and with Shirok, were you part of the internal investigation that went on regarding that incident?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And I just have a simple question for you. You know, what is the policy of Paga Inc. regarding people acting either in a mosh pitting way, striking other patrons, striking anybody within the club?
It's a zero tolerance.
And if something like that happens, what is the policy thereafter if you catch that happening in your club?
Well, we asked them to stop first, and then if they proceed, we ask them to leave.
Okay, and do you have anything else you want to add as far as the incident of that night?
No, I don't.
I don't have any further questions, nor do I have any further witnesses.
Thank you. We'll turn to the board. Chairman Joyce, do you have any further questions?
I just have one question. Is there an internal report that was written up after this night?
I have not received the internal report. You'd have to ask Mr. Reza.
Yes, we do, ma'am.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind forwarding that to the board, that would be great. I have no
Of
other
course.
questions. No questions for me, Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon, do you?
Going back to the video, since there was some retrieved, do you guys have video out front at the entrance?
Yes, we do.
And did you retrieve any of this incident from the entrance?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it was, the front door was retrieved, but I do know the dance floor one was retrieved. I'll double check on the front door and see if that was retrieved, but there was really no incident at the front door.
At the time, weren't they alleging that they had been pushed out the door? Onto the
That's
street?
what they alleged.
Yeah,
But
so,
it's my understanding that as they exited, there's several sets of doors, and as they exited one set of doors by where there's, I think, a 3 or 4 stair landing, one of the girls fell, and that's when she actually grabbed the security officer's tie to pull herself up with.
yeah, but that evening at the time, she's alleging that she was pushed, right?
Exactly. So whatever video, let's say this, whatever video we have, we're happy to turn over to you, along with the internal investigation report.
And
The question is
If-
like, now you, depending on what video you preserve that around that time, you would have, right? And
Yes.
Might be gone.
Yes, because I think the recorders actually re-record over after
Yeah.
a certain amount of time.
So what I'm getting at is if she's alleging that she was pushed out the door, you would preserve that video. to protect yourself, no?
We would preserve that video if we understood that that's what she was alleging at that time, yes.
And you've already said that you were aware that she was alleging that at the time.
Well, the only time we found out that she was alleging that was when we found the police report. When we
So
got,
Mark, I believe we do have a video that I could submit. I don't we do have surveillance tapes, and there are a couple of cameras that might have caught some of this, and I'm happy to look into it today and submit them. I just want to say that just, being in that location for over 20 years, being in that area for over 30 years is just not our culture to grab customers, let alone female customers, and do this. So, what she's alleging is, I think the lady was very upset that we asked her to leave. And again, it's something that we teach our guys all the time of how to handle customers, specifically female customers. And it's just not true what she's describing.
Okay, I'll await the videos. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The board will take this matter under advisement as well, and please do provide any video or internal report of the incident to licensing board at boston.gov. Thank you.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
Calling item number 4, Ipswich Entertainment, Inc., doing business as Loretta's Last Call, located at 1 Lansdowne Street, dated the incident September 1st, 2022. Assault and battery, patron on patron, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A, and assault and battery employee on patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, Attorney Green, Madam Chair, members of the board. Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. With me this morning are a number of people, not all of whom may need to testify, but I'd like to have them sworn. Ariana Capuano, who's the assistant manager, who was in charge of the night in question. Corvington Demond. Miles, hold on. Miles Kupka. Miguel Lugo. Graham Roach, and Dan Garden, as well as Katina Korofines, who's the risk manager for the Lions Group, in terms of any records necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Joseph Holman.
Detective Norman Texera.
Thank you. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? And all who are planning to testify, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Sergeant Hoban, will you be reading the police report into the record?
Yes, I believe police officer cars in the Bahamas, so I'll take care of her police report.
Great. Thank you. You may proceed.
About 12:24 a.m. on Thursday, September 1st, 2022, officers Car Chiola of the Delta 201 Alpha Unit responded to a radio call for an assault in progress at 1 Lansdowne Street, Loretta's Last Call. Officers were assisted by Sergeant Hoban and myself, along with police officer Henriquez and the Delta 431. On arrival, officers spoke with the victim, number 1, known as Lombardi. Lombardi stated that while dancing, suspect number 1, an unknown white male, described as being muscular, 5'9", wearing a floral shirt, approached her and began grabbing her while she danced. She told officers that suspect number 1, who she referred to as a floral shirt guy, grabbed her thigh and arms and refused to back away when asked to do so. An altercation ensued, resulting in victim number 1, Lombardi, losing her necklace and debit cards. Her ID was also lost in the scuffle. The floral shirt guy left the area in an unknown direction. Victim number 1, Lombardi, further stated that during the altercation between her and the floral shirt guy, the bartender saw suspect number 2, Roach, jumped over the counter, grabbed her by the shoulders, and threw her to the ground. The manager/witness Capuano stated that she came over to victim number 1. Lombardi pulled her aside and took her statement. According to Lombardi, it was at this time the suspect number 2, Roach, walked over to the edge of the bar and threw a cup filled with an unknown liquid at her. Police officers met with the bartender, suspect number 2, Roach. He stated that while working behind the bar, he observed victim number 1, Lombardi, put a knee to floral shirt guy's head several times. He told officers that he immediately intervened and moved Lombardi away, preventing her from causing serious injury to floor shirt guy. Roach stated that he then walked over to the bar to finish his shift. Suspect number 2, Roach, further stated that while he was behind the bar, victim number 1, Lombardi, picked up a mug and threw it at his direction, hitting another bartender, who was victim number 2, Gardner, in his left bicep. Officers observed a red mark on Gardner's bicep. Roach stated that he then threw a cup of water at Lombardi. The manager/witness, Capuano, confirmed that she witnessed the occurrence of that series of events. All parties involved refused medical attention. Body-worn cameras were activated, and Sergeant Holman completed a licensed premise violations number 042877 while on scene. I also have a police report documents in that code 35. If you'd like me to read that.
Sure, you can read that in.
Okay, it's brief. About 12:30 a.m., Sergeant Hoban, along with other District 4 personnel, responded to a call for an assault and battery at 1 Lansdowne Street, Boston. Sergeant Hoban conducted a licensed premise inspection, also known as a Code 35. Now, Loretta's last call was issued a licensed premise violation number 042877 as a result of a patron-on-patron assault and battery and an employee on patron assault and battery. Sergeant Hoban spoke with Miles Kopka, who was the manager of the premise. And that is all.
Thank you, Sergeant. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
If I may, excuse me, if I may ask Sergeant Hoban a few questions.
Sure.
Good morning, Sergeant.
Good morning.
You arrived, you and the other officers arrived after this alleged incident had already occurred. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you have no personal observations other than after you arrived at the scene?
I personally don't have any observations, correct?
Okay. You did, however, almost at the same time, 12 a.m., midnight, you filled out the inspection notice,
Yes,
and it was signed by Mr. Kopka.
correct.
And on that report, you indicated that the management cooperated with the police. Is that correct?
They did.
Okay. And you interacted with the alleged victim here, Ms. Lombardi?
Very briefly outside of the establishment, yes.
And when you did, was Ms. Capuano with her?
That I don't recall.
Okay. The report does indicate that witness Capuano, who's the assistant manager who's with us this morning, pulled Lombardi aside and took her outside. So does that sound like?
That's what the police report, yes, I believe that is true to the events of what occurred there.
So management of the establishment was with the alleged victim when the police arrived?
Yes,
Okay. And did you inquire of management? Let me rephrase that question. The inspection notice indicates that the police were called by patron/victim.
yes.
Did you inquire of Ms. Capuano as to why they didn't call the police?
I didn't at the time, no.
And so Ms. Capuano cooperated with you, and then did you inquire of Roach and Gardner, the bartenders?
I believe the police officers already had handled speaking to those parties involved, and I was kind of there for the inspection, the violation.
Okay. It presents as kind of an unusual set of circumstances. I was just wondering.
It does.
Yeah. As I just from reading the police report and having interviewed the licensee witnesses, they tell a different story, as you might imagine, that
Right.
this woman was inappropriate on the dance floor, was literally kicking this person who was on the ground, and that's when Roach, as the bartender, jumped over to stop her from doing that and separated them. And she apparently suggests to the police that he, quote, threw her to the ground. Did you have any interaction with Mr. Roach to have him explain what it is that he did?
I remember briefly speaking to some staff there, and I asked if the cameras in the establishment work, and those will tell the entire story of the events. You know what I mean? If the surveillance cameras worked within the establishment, then that'll kind of solve the whole issue of what happened here. I hope that they work. They said they did. because that always solves every problem.
I think, I know we have, I think I'm correct in stating, Ms. Corpines, correct me please, that we have the tape. We have video.
Ms. Corpines, you're on mute. Oh,
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, that was a little crazy. Yes, we do have video surveillance. The area that I was able to save 4 different clips that best showed what took place. It is difficult to see, but you can see a scuffle by the stage to the right of the stage. But we have preserved that and we can turn it over to the board.
Okay, we will provide that immediately. I was unaware whether it was given to the police at or near the time of the incident, but we certainly have it and we'll preserve it and provide it to Mr. Green later today.
Yes.
thank you.
So and just Sergeant, just one further question. Did you observe, it indicates that the bartender Gardner was struck with this cup that was thrown by the alleged victim and that a bruise was shown on his arm. Did you see that?
I never saw the bruise personally.
Okay, but
The
that
other
is in,
officers- Yeah,
that
it's
is
in
in
the
the
police report, so one of the officers definitely saw it.
okay,
They wouldn't have put it in the police report unless they did.
okay, thank you.
No problem.
If I may, Madam Chair, Mr. Green, may I ask for, is Miguel Lugo with us here?
Let me see, Miguel.
Yeah, I'm here.
There he is, there he is. So, Miguel, would you just state your name for the record?
Miguel Lugo.
Okay, and just speak up as loudly as you can, please. And you've been sworn this morning, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain what your responsibilities were at the establishment and whether you were there on the night in question?
I am a security guard in there, and I was there that night.
Okay. And did you observe an incident that occurred between the woman who's described as victim number 1, whose name is Cassandra Lombardi, between her and an individual described as the floral shirt guy?
Yes.
And can you tell the board what you saw?
Yes. So I walked in through the back door, and I seen floral shirt guy grabbing this girl aggressively. So I was kind of confused. I was waiting for him to come to me, and then that's when she came and like struck him in the private area, and kept continuing to assault him. And that's when I came in to break it up, and also one of our co-workers, Graham, came to break it up. And all we did was separate them, and we put our arms apart, like in between them, and then just separate them but like just step in between both of them.
Did you or the other staff person who was with you, did either of you throw her to the ground?
No.
So did you simply put your arms up to keep these people separated?
Yes.
Okay. And did you then make an observation of whether or not this woman threw the cup or the jar or whatever it was in the direction of the bartenders?
Yes, I was there.
And did you see that?
Yes.
Okay. And were you interviewed by the police?
No.
Were you there when the police were there?
Yes.
And if the board may have some questions, I just would ask, we have Mr. Gardner present, who was the person at the bar, if I may inquire of him. Yeah, Mr. Gardner, just state your name for the record, please.
Daniel Gardner.
Have you been sworn this morning?
Yes.
And would you describe your responsibilities at the establishment?
I'm a bartender, so anything behind the bar, that's on me.
Okay, and were you bartending that night?
I was.
Can you tell the board what you saw and what happened to you?
Sure. I hadn't witnessed the initial part of the altercation. I only realized what had happened after the alleged victim had. Sorry. He's camera. The camera. I only had seen what had happened when the alleged victim had begun striking the floral shirt guy. And that's when Graham had rushed behind me from behind the bar, out by the arm bar. So he never jumped over the bar from what I'd witnessed. He ran out from behind the bar from the arm bar, and attempted to break it up as some of the patrons were trying to get involved. So he separated some patrons and then separated the victim, Kelly, Miss Lombardi. And from there, that's kind of all I had seen at that moment. At the moment, I had separated some of the other patrons from it just so it didn't get any worse. And yeah, that's all I saw.
What were you the person who was struck?
I was the person who was struck. Yes. Yeah. Sorry.
And what was it that you were struck with?
It was like a Moscow Mule cup, like one of the tin brass cups.
Okay. And did you see who threw it at you?
Yeah, it was Miss Lombardi.
Thank you, sir. The board may have some questions for any or all of you.
Are there any further witnesses you plan to present, Attorney Quilty, or is that all?
I don't. I know yes, I'm sorry, I do apologize. Miss Capuano is with us, if I may.
Before you start, Dennis, I think Mr. Roach is having trouble. I think he's in the waiting room. He was having trouble getting on.
I didn't see him. That's why I wasn't calling. I didn't know whether he was with us or not.
There's no one in the waiting room right now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may then, Ms. Capuano, can you unmute yourself? And would you just tell us your name, please?
Capuano.
Say it again, please.
Ariana Capuano.
Okay, and have you been sworn to testify this morning?
Yes.
And were you the assistant manager in charge on the night in question at the establishment?
I wasn't the assistant general manager at the time, but I was the manager on duty that night.
I'm sorry, I meant the manager on duty that night. You were. And in that context, did you make certain observations about this incident?
Yes, so I didn't see the initial altercation. I was notified by staff after the initial scuffle had occurred. At that point, I was with the victim, Miss Lombardi, and she had already called police at that time. That's why we did not call the police on our end. We knew they were en route. So I took her outside, took her statement, and we waited for police to arrive.
So did you bring her outside yourself?
I did, yes.
And the purpose of that was to be available when the police arrived?
Correct.
And your testimony is that you knew that she had already called the police, so you didn't call yourself?
Yes.
Would you otherwise have called the police or directed staff to call the police?
Yes, of course.
And did you cooperate with the police when they arrived?
I did.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Again, the board may have questions for some or all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions?
Sorry, I'll just wait until the video is submitted. One question I do have is, how long was this group at the establishment?
Well, I think it's somewhat hard to say. It's not a group. Was these two individuals were literally, I don't think they were together. I think they were just on the dance floor, and this, whatever happened between them occurred, and then our staff went in to break it up. Does anyone, Katina, do we have a time frame?
I do not believe we have a time frame I don't believe anyone knows how long they were in the establishment.
And the floral shirt guy, as the report indicates, simply disappeared out, must have run out onto the street, so we know.
Yes. That is my understanding.
Thank you. Any further questions, Chairman Joyce?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Kern or Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
I was wondering if you guys had any statement regarding the mission that Roach threw a cup of water at Lombardi.
I'm sorry, whether we had what, Chairman, Mr. Commissioner?
Anything to say regarding that admission?
I'm sorry, he's not with us this morning. If he were here, he would tell you that he was trying to assist this woman, and she started calling him names and getting in his face, and all they were trying to do was help her. And she then threw this, cup at the other fellow. And in his reaction was he tossed a thing of water at her. And we're not going to say it didn't happen. It happened. He would tell you this morning that he overreacted and shouldn't have done it. But indeed, that's what happened. After she threw the Moscow Mule Cup and hit Mr. Gardner, he just instinctively tossed that thing. It was a cup of water, plastic thing of water. But that indeed happened.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
Thank you. The board will take this matter under advisement, and please do provide any video that are available to.
Let's do continue. We make sure that's provided today.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Calling item number 5, Pitcher's Mound LLC, doing business as Diamond at Fenway, located at 72 Brookline Ave, dated the incident September 8th, 2022. Assault and battery, patron on patron, in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning again, Mr. Green, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. With us this morning, Derek Schwartz, who's the newly appointed manager of record. Colm Lydon, who's the director of security for the Red Sox. David Friedman, and who else is with us? Sonia Bablia, and I don't know who else, but at least those individuals. Thank you.
Elaine Stewart, too.
And Elaine Stewart, I'm sorry, Elaine, I didn't see you there.
Great, thank you. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Detective Norman Texera.
Thank you, Detective. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you, Detective Texera. If you could please proceed with the police report.
Okay. About 10:50 p.m. on Thursday, September 8th, 2022, Officer Jenner, while working a detail at the Aerosmith concert at Fenway Park, did make an arrest of one male subject, as well as summons another male subject after assault and battery. While Officer Jenner was working the event, Sergeant Salucci put over Channel 5 that there was a fight area of Gate A near the intersection of Brookline Ave and Jersey Street. Officer Jenner, along with Officer Waddy Niles, then began to make their way to Gate A from Gate D to assist Sergeant Salucci. As the officers approached the scene at Gate A, the officers observed a white male, Thomas Doherty, who was later identified as the victim. The victim appeared to have an injury to his nose and was bleeding from his nose and forehead. The officers also, another male, Brian Butler, who was speaking with the victim and appeared to be apologizing to the victim for an unknown reason at this time. Officers then separated these two individuals and began to speak with Mr. Butler, who reported that he is good friends with the victim, but had not seen the victim for years prior to that night. Mr. Butler reported that he began to joke with the victim about a past incident that took place multiple years ago. The victim adamantly refused any medical attention. Mr. Butler reported that his two sons, Nicholas Butler, suspect number 1, and Timothy Butler, suspect number 2, who were also attending the concert with him that night, saw him joking with the victim and thought that they were in an altercation taking place between the victim and the dad. The father, Mr. Butler, reported that his two sons then began to go after the victim by punching the victim in the head with closed fists. The father reported that he did attempt to break up the fight, but was unsuccessful. It should be noted that during this physical altercation, the victim did fall to the ground and land on a Fenway employee, Christina Ford, causing her to fall and injure her right leg. After speaking with the father, Officer Jenner was then approached by a male, Gerard Vulgaris, who reported that he witnessed part of the fight. Mr. Vulgaris reported that a white male wearing a light pink shirt appeared to be primary aggressor. Mr. Vulgar reported that this white male in the pink shirt was continuously throwing punches at the victim. Mr. Vulgar was able to point out this male in the pink shirt, who remained on scene, was currently speaking with other officers on scene. It should also be noted that the white male in the pink shirt was identified as suspect number 1, Nicholas Butler. Officer Jenner then made contact with Officer Galvin and Officer Buchanan, who reported that they had another suspect in custody who was also involved in the altercation. The suspect was then identified as suspect number 2, Timothy Butler. Officer Galvin then reported that himself, along with multiple other officers, were working the Fenway detail, attempted to stop suspect number 2, who was actively running away from the officers who were issuing verbal commands for the suspect to stop running. Officer Galvin reported that it was when suspect number 2 stopped running, turned his body so that he was now facing Officer Buchanan, and then cocked his right arm back with a clenched fist in what officers thought was an attempt to strike Officer Buchanan. At this time, officers subdued the suspect by bringing him to the ground. Due to his violent and uncooperative behavior, officers continued to issue multiple commands for the suspect to stop resisting and place his hands behind his back, which the suspect continued to resist. The officers, by laying on his stomach, his hands under his chest and clenching his arms, so that officers were unable to easily place him in handcuffs. After a brief, officers were able to place suspect number 2 in handcuffs. It should be noted that during the struggle with the suspect, Officer Galvin did receive multiple minor injuries. It was referenced in another report in regards to his injuries. After the struggle had taken place with the suspect number 2, Sergeant Detective Keenan was able to go inside Fenway security, and he was able to view video footage which showed the suspects punching the victim and causing the victim's injuries to his face and him fall to the ground. It should be noted that the bystander, Vanessa Gillis, did receive an injury to her left ankle after being knocked to the ground from the struggle between the officers and suspect number 2. Ms. Gillis was transported to Beth Israel Hospital by an ambulance with a minor injury to her ankle. Nicholas Butler will be charged with assault and battery. Timothy Butler will be charged with assault and battery on a police officer, and resisting arrest. As a supplement to this report, on September 14th at about 7 o'clock, myself, and I believe it was Detective Parlon, responded to Fenway Park to issue a Code 35 violation. I issued a City of Boston violation inspection number 026409 for assault and battery patron on patron to Fenway Park.
Thank you very much, Detective. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
If I may, just a few questions for the detective.
Yes.
Detective, to your knowledge, did Fenway Security provide video to the Boston Police?
I believe I did receive video of some of the incident.
Okay. We would certainly have testimony this morning that was done, so we'd certainly be able to provide it if there's any reason that you did not receive it. And you just finished your report by reading the inspection notice, and you suggested in that the licensee cooperated with the Boston Police Department.
Yes.
In fact, was it Mr. Leiden who signed the violation?
Yeah.
And he was with you the whole time?
Yes.
Okay. And he's the Director of Security for Fenway Park?
Yes.
Okay. And you and other officers were assigned as detailed police officers that night, were you?
No, I was not working.
You were, I'm sorry, you followed up, but the other police officers who were involved in the report were detail officers who were
Yes.
there for, okay, at Fenway Park tonight. Do you know how many detail officers there were on?
I don't know how many officers are working the detail. It mentions at least 4 or 5 other officers in the report, but I don't know the total numbers.
Okay, all right. And has there been any follow-up with the alleged victim, or to your knowledge?
I don't know how the court proceedings are going. I haven't been asked for any of the video.
Okay. And so both of these people were taken into custody on the night in question, is that right?
One was taken into custody, one was summoned to court.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, the Boston Red Sox security and personnel cooperated fully with you?
Yes.
And the other officers?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. If I may, Mr. Green, before you question, I just want to, the story, if you will, the narrative that was read by Detective Texera is exactly what happened. This was a mistaken, these two sons of the individuals thought that their father was being, I don't know how, but thought he was in a fight with the father, Mr. Butler, and they came to what they thought was his defense. I mean, totally unnecessary. It was uncalled for. They were inappropriate. In fact, as you've heard, one was arrested and one summoned. This was a bizarre incident, which the licensee staff and security personnel attended to immediately. There were multiple Boston Police detail officers on duty and involved in this incident, as is always the case. We can provide the exact number, I'm sure, from Mr. Lyden, but of course, the board is aware that at any occurrence at Fenway Park, at a game, a concert, or other event, there are multiple dozens of Boston police officers assigned, and our staff is always there to assist in any way possible, which we did in this circumstance. I'm happy to report that the Fenway employee who herself was injured when somebody fell on her is back at work, and there are no issues there. Again, this is an unfortunate circumstance, and I think in every respect the licensee attended to it appropriately, and we certainly stand by for any of your questions.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions?
I do have some questions. Can you give me some more details about how many security or detail officers are on? The way it's described in the police report, it sounds like this fight occurred for several minutes. I would like to know at what point did security or the detail police officers take notice of this?
Colin, can you respond to at least first of all, perhaps if you have the number of officers that we had on
For a
detail?
concert such as this, that would be 55 to 75 throughout the day, police officers. And the woman, Christina Ford, that was actually injured is security. She was right there on top of this, as was the police department. It was actually Sergeant Salucci that made the call to the officers after witnessing it on Jersey Street as everyone was exiting out Gate A up towards Brookline Avenue. So it didn't go on for a long time, although it does seem like that because it was an initial attack on the victim, Tommy Doherty, and then it was chasing the suspect up to Brookline Ave, where the police were able to capture him there. And the other suspect was stopped right there and interviewed by police, and he was summoned in.
And were all the suspects and the father, were they all at the concert?
I believe they were.
Do you have any
It appears
idea?
They were attending the concert, yes.
Do you have any idea how much they were served while they were there?
I don't know that. I know there's only one part where it says anything about alcohol, and that's just, is it assumed that it was, it's consumed, that's it.
Okay, thank you. So in this area where the punching occurred, like of the 55 officers you have on at a concert like this throughout the day, are they roaming, or do they, as concerts are exiting, do you have a certain number that are stationed at these gates?
They're right there. It was on-sited by Sergeant Salucci, who was right there at Gate A, viewing the exit from that area. There would be another 2 officers there, and then there would be 4 or 5 up at Brookline and Jersey Street to help egress. So they were right on top of it. They on-sited it just as our security did. And it was actually when our security, it's Christina Ford, the one that was injured with her leg. She is our security. She was right on top of it when it happened.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Curran, would you like to go first, and then Commissioner Saxon?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I don't either. Thank you.
Thank you. The board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 6, Dustin Cruz doing business as La Paria Restaurant located at 299 Hancock Street in Dorchester. Date of the incident, October 30th, 2022. Premise operating after posted closing hour in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 9. Premise providing alcohol to patrons without license in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 2. And assault and battery with a dangerous weapon in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 9, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee? Is anybody present this morning on behalf of La Paria Restaurant? Chairwoman Joyce, they were attempted to be hand served. I know officers had difficulty as the premise was closed. They were then mailed service to the home address of the manager of record. Would you like to have the police report into the record or give the licensee an opportunity to reschedule?
I will read into the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher.
Thank you. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Yep. Lieutenant Detective Mike McCarthy from C11.
Thank you. Can you both please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I do.
Thank you very much. Sergeant Gallagher, if you could please read the police report into the record.
Yes, please. I'll be reading a police report that was authored by Officer Christopher Donlin. About 5:51 a.m. on Sunday, 10/30/2022, officers Donlin and Miller in the Harry 104 responded to a person shot located at 299 Hancock Street, La Paria Restaurant. Additional responding units were the Harry 980, Sergeant Detective Webb, Harry 202, Welch and Myers, Harry 103, Reagan and Milan, Harry 447, Miranda, Harry 415, Garvey, Harry 435, Danberville, and the Tango Gold 02, Cooper and Coughlin. Upon arrival, officers located a male victim known to the Commonwealth, suffering from a gunshot wound to the back. Boston EMS Paramedic 2, Lewis and Plata, and Boston EMS Ambulance A93, Doherty and Strunin arrived on scene to evaluate the victim. Victim was transported to Boston Medical Center for evaluation. Female victim known to the Commonwealth was located on scene, suffering from a gunshot wound to the leg. Boston EMS Ambulance A03 EMTs Johnson and Carter arrived on scene and transported the victim to Brigham and Women's Hospital. The Harry 980, Sergeant Detective Webb requested full notifications at 6:07 a.m. Should be noted, the third victim known to the Commonwealth later arrived at Boston Medical Center, suffering a gunshot wound to the back. Officers believe the victim received the injuries at 299 Hancock Street. The victim 912, Sergeant Detective Brown, the Yankee Charlie 22, Superintendent Walsh, the Harry Charlie 01, Captain Burns, the Victor Alpha 06, Lieutenant Detective McLaughlin, the Victor 856, Detective Walsh, Detective Harry Alpha 81, Lieutenant Detective McCarthy, Harry 809, Detective Downey, Harry 806, Detective Callahan. The Harry 812, Detective Kelly also responded to the scene. The scene was cleared by Detective Brown at 10:45 a.m. pending a search warrant. The next report is my report. And it goes as follows. On 11/21/2022, at about 9:25 p.m., Sergeant Detective Gallagher, Detective Hernandez, assigned to the licensed premise unit, did issue licensed premise inspection notice number 059968 to La Paria Restaurant at 299 Hancock Street in Dorchester. Inspection notice was issued to La Paria for an incident that occurred on 10/30/2022 at 5:30 a.m. in the basement level of the premise, where 3 patrons were shot by another patron. Boston Police Department report number 222-083762. Licensed unit detectives were informed by BPD investigators and responding officers that La Paria had turned their basement into an after-hours nightclub, complete with alcohol and hookah consumption. Sergeant Detective Gallagher was able to observe photos, numerous alcohol bottles, and a price list where patrons could order a full bottle of hard alcohol. La Paria currently holds a food-only license number LB 100455, which has a 11 p.m. posted closing. As a result of this serious incident, resulting in 3 patrons being wounded by gunfire during the early morning hours after an illegal after-hours alcohol party, licensed premise inspection notice will be delivered to Mr. Dustin Cruz at 6 Regina Road, Dorchester, Mass. 02124 by registered mail. A copy of this notice will also be forwarded to the Boston Licensing Board. I'd like to add that myself and Detective Hernandez did also attempt to hand serve this to 6 Regina Road, and we were unable to locate a current address for the license holder. It appears that they have moved. There was old mail there, but we knocked on the door and there's different people there. I know Lieutenant Detective McCarthy was on scene that evening. He can fill in any further questions that the board might have, and that is what we have.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions for the officers?
I was just wanted to confirm, or if you could tell me whether or not they have been operating since this incident.
As far as we know, ma'am, no, they have not. We've gone by on several occasions and the premise is dark. There was a funny twist to this. The license holder, it appears, when I sat down with the detectives and the district attorney, that the license holder is renting his license out to a woman from New York City whose son in Boston was actually running the place. So there seems to be a little disconnect, and I'm not sure how long Mr. Cruz has been out of the picture, but I don't think he's been around for a while.
That is an interesting twist. Thank you. No other questions. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board will take this under advisement as well. Calling item number 7, Via Veneto Restaurant Inc. doing business as Filippo Ristorante and Ducali Pizzeria and Bar located at 283 Causeway Street. Date of the incident, November 7th, 2022. Patrons drinking alcohol in public way in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Board's Rule 1.09D. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Philip Frateroli, owner, and with me is Nicholas Finch, the manager on duty that night.
Thank you. I don't see him. Oh, Mr. Fish. Yeah, Mr. Fish, if you do plan to testify, if we could just have you on camera, please, so we can swear you in. In the meantime, who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I will be. I am.
Thank you very much. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, if need be.
Thank you. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Detective Hernandez, if you could please proceed with the police report.
Good morning. I'll be reading from a police report, which I wrote on Monday, November 7th, 2022. Sergeant Detective William Gallagher and Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the BPD License Premise Unit, conducted a license premise inspection of Ducali Pizza located 289 Causeway Street in Boston. While walking into the establishment, detectives observed 2 patrons walking out with what appeared to be beers out of the premise onto the public way. As detectives were asking staff what the patrons were drinking, the patrons walked back inside the establishment and confirmed that they were drinking beers. Detectives advised the patrons that they cannot bring alcohol outside of the establishment, and brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Nicholas Fish. As a result of what detectives observed, Sergeant Detective William Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice 058996 for patron drinking alcohol in front of premise on a public way. Mr. Fish signed for an acceptable. So,
Thank you very much. Mr. Frateroli, Mr. Fish, would you like to address the alleged incident?
So this was the night of a Boston Bruins game. This happened at approximately 11 o'clock. The patrons were customers of ours before the game. And I guess from what I've been told, they entered the restaurant with plastic cups full of beer. We don't serve beer in plastic cups. They didn't get it from us. They came into the restaurant, and that happens a lot on game nights. People using our restaurant, especially people who come in earlier in the night to go to the bathroom. But as I said, we don't serve beer in plastic, and I'm not sure how these guys got it or where they got it, but it didn't come from us.
Thank you. Anything further from you or Mr. Fish before we turn to the board? Okay. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions?
Sergeant Gallagher or Detective Hernandez, did it appear that these patrons were walking outside with plastic cups that they did not get at this restaurant?
I don't know, but they were sitting at a table when we saw them coming out, and they went back in and sat at a table. We had a couple of words with them while they were inside the establishment.
Okay. Mr. Frateroli, were they eating dinner at your restaurant?
As the information that I was told was they walked into the restaurant with beer. I just sitting at a table was new information to me. I can't say either way.
Sounds like Mr. Fish was there. Does Mr. Fish have anything he wants to add?
Yes, the patrons, I was working, I was already ready to close down. I was saying bye basically to my last table, closing them out. As soon as I notice the situation, I see the patrons telling the officers, "You're just mad because you don't have beer." And I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? So I go, ask the patrons, please leave. Please, you were here earlier, you had your fun. Now I got cops here checking my licenses and you're being very rude to them. So I will please ask you to step out. They stepped out. I showed the officers the licenses and that was it. They were not eating at a table. They had just walked in, basically a minute after the officers walked in.
Okay, Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
On game nights, post game, do you station anyone at the door to kind of monitor this, like game crowds coming by, trying to use your bathrooms, that kind of stuff?
No, sir. It was just me closing. My other servers were already off the clock and I had already closed out everything. We were about to walk out in like 5 minutes. So no, there was no one. I was just cleaning up, making sure everything was ready for the next day.
Honestly, in 15 years of business, it hasn't really been an issue. A lot of the times the people coming to use the bathrooms are customers who came to the restaurant beforehand. The people who park in the garage next to the restaurant, if they're not coming to the restaurant that night, might come and they're season ticket holders and will come the next week if they're going to the game. So, we can be very stringent about it, but it's when people ask us to use the bathroom, whether it's in that situation or, and these people didn't ask, and it doesn't look like they were trying to use the bathroom, but it's par for the course when you're on the Freedom Trail in the north end and there's not a lot of infrastructure around us to send people to go to the bathroom.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
Nothing further, thanks.
Thank you, Chairman Joyce. Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. The board will take this matter under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Calling item number 8, Fenway Johnny's LLC, doing business as Fenway Johnny's, located at 96 to 98 Brookline Ave, date of the incident November 12th, 2022. Persons under 21 in possession of alcohol on premise in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34A, 34C, and 6464A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, Madam Chairperson Joyce, Commissioners Saxon, Curran, and Attorney Green. Seamus O'Kelly for the licensee. Present is the licensee, John Caron, and I also hope present is the general manager who was on that night. He was on the screen earlier, Igor Trindade.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I am.
Thank you. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
William Gallagher, if need be.
Thank you. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Jose Fernandez, you may please proceed with the police report.
Good morning. I'm reading from police report, which I wrote on Saturday, November 12th, 2022. Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned for the BPD license premise unit, conducted a license premise inspection at Fenway Johnny's located 96 Brookline Ave in Boston. As detectives walked into the establishment, detectives observed 2 patrons drinking alcoholic beverages. Detectives noted that these patrons looked young, and detective asked them to produce identification to confirm their ages. Initially, the patrons stated they were 21 years of age. Upon further questioning, it was determined that the patrons were under 21 years of age. Upon further investigation, the patrons are positively identified as Kaya Rossi with a fraudulent New Jersey driver's license, and Gianna Barucci with a fraudulent Connecticut driver's license. Both individuals were summoned into court for persons under 21 possession of alcohol and false misuse of a registry document. Detectives brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Igor Trindade. As a result of what detectives observed, Sergeant Gallagher issued license premise inspection on 059955 for persons under 21 years old and possession of alcohol on premise. Mr. Trindade signed for an accepted notice. That is all.
Thank you very much. Attorney O'Kelly, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, thank you. Before I ask Detective Hernandez some questions, Commissioners, I would just like to inform you that I did visit the licensed premises myself to meet with Mr. Trindade regarding this incident, because I wanted to see what type of security measures were in place at the door, checking for licenses. And I do have a tape that I will provide the Commissioners that I will drop off to Mr. Green's office, showing 3 individuals employed by Fenway Johnny's with a special app on a cell phone, on a mobile phone, confirming identifications at the door through driver's licenses. And so there is it's a short video, but it will show the security operation that's in use at the premises. Detective Hernandez, you in fact wrote the police report that you just read to the board. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said that you came into the bar and you with Detective Gallagher, I believe, and you noticed 2 people whom you thought were underage. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you asked, did you ask them for identification?
Initially, we just asked them if they were 21, and then we did ask them for identification. And that's when they provided the fraudulent driver's licenses.
So they provided driver's licenses to you, which subsequently turned out to be fraudulent, correct?
Correct.
And I believe, Detective Hernandez, that you are familiar with, I think it's an app called IntelliCheck Age ID. Are you familiar with that app? It's a bit of an odd name, but.
Yes, sir. That's the app that we use.
That's the app that the Boston Police Department uses, correct?
Correct.
And that's the app, in fact, that has been used by Fenway Johnny's, correct?
Well, that's the app that they have. I don't think they were using it that evening.
You don't believe they were using it that evening?
No, sir. When we were standing outside, we didn't see them using it when we were standing outside. Initially, we stood outside and then we walked in. And then we walked in, we were not seeing anybody using the app. And I think that's how those girls got in. I believe.
You believe. But I know you have not seen this videotape that I'm going to provide to the board. But this is a videotape that I have seen of this app being used outside the premises. You're saying you didn't see that in use that night?
Okay, is that video from that night, sir?
I believe so. I'll ask Mr. Trindade when he comes on.
Okay. It's sort of interesting to see how that was being used for those 2 young ladies. If when we scanned them, they showed that they were fraudulent IDs. So, okay.
Okay, but as far as you know, that app, it is currently in use by Fenway Johnny's, correct?
They do have it. I don't know that they're using it.
Okay. And you also cited these 2 young persons. They were summoned into court for being under 21 and possession of alcohol, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you spoke to Mr. Trindade that night when you were on the licensed premises, correct?
Yes, sir.
And was he cooperative with you?
Always. He's always been very cooperative.
Thank you very much, Detective Hernandez. No further questions.
You're welcome,
sir. You, Attorney O'Kelly, do you have witnesses you would like to present?
Yes, I'd like to call Igor Trindade, please.
You may proceed.
Good. I think it's still the morning. Good morning, Mr. Trindade. You have been sworn, correct?
I have.
And you've heard Detective Hernandez testify here this morning and read the police report of an incident dating from November the 12th, 2022.
I did.
Yeah. Do you remember that incident in particular?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recall about that incident?
Well, originally, if I'm not mistaken, they came in to do a license check. And, upon entering, I believe it was, I forget what time it was, but we talked for a bit about licensing, and then we kind of made a joke like everybody in here looks young, and I said I think we're just old, but just joking around. And then they proceeded to go around and check. They said we're gonna go around and check some IDs. I'm like, by all means, please do. And that's when they came back with these two female individuals, and they said, they have fake IDs. And I said, I was kind of shocked because, we do use the app that was recommended to us by the Boston PD, a while ago, and we've been using it since I've been there, which is 2018, at that location, and that was it.
Do you recall if that app was in use that evening, that night?
It was. They have two. We have two. As you mentioned, we have 3 people outside, and we have two devices that kind of have. We have a license for them, so we have 2 at each place, and we have a specific one for the restaurant itself that's specifically used for that. We provide to the door guy every night, and he gives it back to us at the end of the night.
So how does the app, could you please educate the board as to how does the app work?
Long story short, it's it's like pretty much a camera. It uses the camera on the phone. There's a barcode on the back of licenses, and you scan that barcode, and then it pops up on the on the screen whether it's over 21, or sometimes it says invalid, or I forget the exact language, but it green for over 21, red for underage.
So if it flashes red, what do you do?
We deny entry.
Okay. And are you familiar with, let's strike that. Is it true if you know that some licenses are more easy to fake as an ID than others, some states? Is that fair?
Well, yeah, it's fair to say. Again, I'm no expert, but I think it's pretty well known. For a while, Connecticut was a great state to do the fake IDs, because I don't know why, but Massachusetts was the hardest. Connecticut was the easiest. It was kind of the thought behind fake IDs, I guess.
And has the bar, the license premises, instituted any other additional procedures to try and stay on top of folks with fake IDs getting into the bar?
Yeah, I instruct my guys, if they are, even if they are in question, to ask people for, of course, a second form of ID, photo ID, of course, and because a lot of people try to present a credit card, which we don't really take that serious, and also social media, just to see that that is the actual person. And a lot of times you can see that they put, they'll put on their social media the year they graduate, all these things on their bio, which they don't even think about. That when we look at the ID, we're like, you're graduating, and so theoretically you can't be 21. So that's kind of a secondary form of kind of catch them on a lie, shall we say?
So a social media platform like Facebook or Instagram?
Exactly.
And that's another backup security system that you're doing, correct?
Correct.
I have no further questions of Mr. Trindade at this point. The board may have some questions. I will say that Mr. John Caron is here if the board would like to hear from the licensee. He can tell you that they are continuing to educate their staff and to go through the dram shop workshops to do everything to educate the staff to prevent instances like this happening in the future.
Okay. Mr. Trinidadi, are you saying that you were using the ID all night, or that your staff was using it all night?
Oh, they have it on them all night. I'm not gonna, but do I look at them 24, throughout the entire night looking at the camera? No, but they are instructed to do so. Of course, if somebody that, 50 or they look well over 21 comes in, you know, we'll look at the ID and we'll let them in. But, you know, somebody would visually are way over 21.
Just to confirm, you train your staff to use the IDs all night for every single person that's coming in that
Yes.
doesn't look 50 years old or older?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when the detective said, when he arrived and he observed the scanner not being used, what's your response to that?
I won't say that he's lying. Again, I didn't see that part happen, as Mr. Seamus O'Kelly said. You know, I looked at the camera and I wanted to provide video showing that the ID was being used. And throughout that period that him and I looked at the video, it was being used.
Okay.
You know, so
And
that's my knowledge.
so if someone looks young and you
Mhm.
have a state ID, what is your policy?
If somebody, I'm sorry, ma'am, what was the question again?
If someone looks young
Yep.
and approaches the door and hands you or your staff an out-of-state ID, what is your policy here?
Well, our policy is number one, scan, and then we'll look at it, we'll scan it. But even if, you know, it does scan, we ask them for a second form of ID or,
You do?
you know, social media, we do, or social media, just to look at their social media, because believe it or not, some people do look very similar and they'll try to use somebody's ID. So just to be sure, as a safety net, we kind of ask for secondary because that is their real information. They should have, you know, more.
Okay, back to the IDs, out-of-state IDs and the scanners. I just want to make a statement that you can't rely on a scanner scanning something as valid if it's an out-of-state ID. And I don't know if Mr. Karen, if you want to add to that, do you have a written policy about out-of-state IDs?
You're asking me?
Someone who does employee training or sets up
Can you
policy?
respond to that, John?
We are scheduled in February for another one. We do it twice a year, basically. After the first of the year, gearing up for the Red Sox, and then in the spring, fall rather, for the playoffs, and then the Bruins and Celtics at the other location.
Back to the IDs. Do you have a written policy about what to do with fake IDs presented at the door? I mean, out-of-state IDs.
That are not good, we take them.
No,
sorry.
so Mr. Trinidadi just said he's aware that Connecticut IDs are really easy to fake, and one of these IDs there this night was a Connecticut ID, and he's also stating that it may have scanned as valid. I'm stating as chair of the board that the law is you cannot rely on an ID scanner even for an out-of-state ID, even if it scans correctly. So I'm suggesting if you don't have a written policy about out-of-state IDs, you put a written policy together and you train your door staff.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It's not enough to, you know, look at someone's social media, even if it scans correctly. If it's a fake ID, you're responsible for it. It's not enough to say we scanned it.
Yeah, I know. I've had this conversation with Mr. Gallagher, and yeah, we know that the scanner is not 100%.
So with that, it's not a defense to come to the board and say, well, we scanned it and it's scanned correctly. So I urge you as chair of the board to go back to your staff and make it very clear that every ID should be scanned if they look under 50, if that's your policy. And if someone's from out of state, I strongly recommend you ask for backup ID and not rely on the scanner. Those are just my comments today.
Yes, well, we do deny people
Great.
If they're in question.
I will tell the board, Madam Chairperson, that we will put in place a written policy if one does not exist now.
It's just not enough to come. We have this every week with different licensed premises. It's not enough to say it was a Connecticut ID and it's scanned correctly. Like, I don't care. You need to be a little bit more insistent at the door to make sure every ID is scanned, not just to answer that they had the scanner on them is just, you know, I have to say it's just a dishonest answer to the question. If it was not being used all night, that's different. I don't care if they had scanners on them. I'm curious as to whether or not they actually used them to prevent people from under 21 coming into the licensed premise. That's what our role here is, to make sure you're following the rules and regulations. So it's a half answer if you said, well, they had the scanner on them. I think you knew what we were getting at is whether or not they were being used that night.
We have the training coming up.
I take your point, Madam Chairman, Chairperson, and I will, I'll represent to
Thank
the
you.
board.
Just want to
That's
get to the point. We had a long introduction by you, attorney, and then we heard from your witnesses, and I just wanted a straightforward answer, which I got. I'm going to move on to Commissioner Curran and then Commissioner Saxon if
Thank
they
you.
have other questions.
Thank you.
My first question is for Detective Hernandez. Did the IDs that they were using have their names on them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my second question would be, did you guys pull the logs of whether or not these were scanned into the app? The app would have a log record of these fake IDs being scanned, correct?
I didn't pull their log, no, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant for the question to be for the premises, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, I wasn't clear on that one. My bad. So for the premises, did you guys pull the logs from your scanners?
Detective Hernandez and I talked about this. We unfortunately, I was in, the app was new to me as far as, the background, because I didn't set it up. The manager at our other location set it up. And I thought it would be internal in the website, but apparently it's by device. So unfortunately for that night, that night I do not have the log, but ever since that night, I looked into the actual device and turned on the log feature, which is device specific, not in the brain, shall we say, which is, where we log in, make the payments and everything on the website.
So they don't keep a web record?
They don't keep a web version of it, apparently. It's all individual. So if I scan on my phone, it stays specifically on my phone. If, we use the, so it's device specific, which I wasn't aware of. I figured it will all be stored in the background, website where we make our payments and do all these things.
Okay, and Mr. Trindade, the video that Attorney O'Kelly has referenced, is that video specific to these two individuals, or is it just general from that night? Can you give me a better description?
It's just a general video from that night within the time frame that the officers were there. I don't know specifically when these two individuals would have gotten in because they were randomly, picked through the crowd. So I figured the best way to give, the board anything would just be to make a time frame of when the officers were there, which I believe the video is, it could be about half an hour, if not more. Just to kind of show within that time frame that we were doing what we thought we were supposed to do.
Did you attempt to identify the moment that they came through on video? Do you have
I did. I looked at the video. I looked for about an hour and a half of footage, but they were, blonde females, if I'm not mistaken, both of them, which is 90% of our clientele that kind of goes in and out. So it was kind of hard to identify them. And they, it was cold, so they had jackets on, and inside, of course, didn't have jackets on.
I don't think that video will be helpful to me, but Commissioner Curran and Commissioner Saxon, if you think it'll be helpful to you, we'll wait for it, but it doesn't sound like it's going to help me at all come to a determination here.
I feel the same way. If it's not specific to these individuals, I don't think it's really that helpful. That's why I was trying to get to that.
I guess the idea behind the video, it was just to show our procedures, as we take steps throughout the night. That's why I made it longer than, needed, just so in case there's any.
I still don't think it'll be helpful.
Okay.
The last thing I would like to get at is, do you have any procedures with after they get in? What are your policies regarding managers or bartenders noticing that people seem underage and re-IDing people?
We always tell them, if you notice that someone, the thought is that if they got, especially at nightlife, if they gotten through the door guys, we assume that they're 21, but I tell them at all times, if you feel that anybody is underage, please card them again, call for me or another manager on duty, and we can always re-ID them. Throughout the restaurant piece of the night, that happens, every once in a while, but throughout the nightclub, Very rarely does it happen because they assume that whatever happened at the door, was validated by the door guys.
And were these two re-ID'd at all?
I'm sorry?
Did you do an inquiry as to whether or not these two were re-ID'd while they were inside at all?
I did not.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Detective Hernandez, what was the quality of the IDs when you looked at them? Were they convincing or was it pretty easy to swap?
I mean, they're pretty good, but I mean, they were using the same software that we were, so if they had used it, it would have given them the same results. So I don't know.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
If I may just say one more thing to Detective Hernandez's point. Recently I came to our knowledge, and our lawyer Mr. Seamus has proof of this, that some of these IDs, even the fakes, even in Massachusetts, they have been scanning that they are real when in fact they are not. So that, we implied another policy that if they look at the ID, even if they scan that they're green sometimes, to ask for a second form of ID, or again, social media, which is kind of our policy, but don't trust the scanner 100% because it is somewhat faulty at times. So it could scan, and we learned this a couple of weeks, a week after that came through, because I asked them, how do these girls get in if their IDs were in fact fake? But just something to take in consideration is that some of the fakes are scanning as real.
Thank you. And anything further from the board at this time?
I have nothing further. Just for clarification, you don't need me to drop off that videotape, correct?
No, thank you.
If you'd like to provide video, you are welcome to, but it sounds like the board would not need it to evaluate this incident.
May I just say one thing?
Sure.
Yeah, we're gonna have that training in the next couple of weeks, and we'll upgrade the policy and procedures. And we can present that to you.
Thank you very much. With that, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 9, 142 Berkeley LLC, doing business as Citrus and Salt, located at 142 Berkeley Street. Date of the incident, November 12th, 2022. Persons under 21 in possession of alcohol on premise in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 34A, 34C, and 64 to 64A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, Executive Secretary, Madam Chair, members of the board. Leslie Delaney Hawkins with the law firm of Prince LaBelle Ty on behalf of the licensee. And with me today is Kelly McNally, the general manager, and Eli Musa, who is a server at the establishment.
Okay, thank you very much. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Detective William Gallagher.
Thank you. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Detective Hernandez if needed.
Thank you very much. Could you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Sergeant Gallagher, you may please proceed with the police report.
Yes, good morning. On 11/12/2022 at 10:25 p.m., Sergeant Detective William Gallagher and Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the licensed premise unit, conducted a licensed premise inspection of Citrus and Salt at 142 Berkeley Street. Inside the premise, detectives observed 2 developing females drinking alcohol. Thinking that the 2 were under 21, detectives approached, identified themselves as BPD, and asked for identification. One of the females, who was identified as Yemen Wei, date of birth 1/12/2003, initially told detectives that her friend Mira Khanna, date of birth 12/26/2001, had given her the alcohol. Detectives informed the manager, Ms. Kelly McNally, of what they observed. Ms. McNally then spoke to the server, who stated that Ms. Wei had also shown a license as well. When questioned again, Ms. Wei gave detectives a fraudulent Maine driver's license in her name with the date of birth that made it appear that she was over 21. Detectives used a license verification program which revealed that the ID to be fraudulent. Detectives confiscated the ID, which will be presented at court. Detective will summons Ms. human way into court for possession of a fraudulent ID, possession of alcohol while under 21 years of age. Detectives will also summon Ms. Kira Kana into court for procuring alcohol for a person under 21 years of age. As a result, what detectives have observed, Sergeant Gallagher issued a license premise inspection notice number 059952 to Citrus and Salt, a person under 21, possession of alcohol on premise. Ms. Kelly McNally signed for and accepted the notice. Those are essentially the facts that evening.
Thank you very much. Attorney Hawkins, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Thank you very much. If I may ask just a couple of questions of Sergeant Detective Gallagher. Sergeant Detective, were the licensee cooperative with you when you were at the premise?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
And it is accurate that although the patron initially claimed she was not ID'd at all, that the staff did actually inspect a form of identification.
They did.
Thank you.
Welcome.
If I may, Ms. McNally,
Yes.
could you please state your full name and title for the board?
My name is Kelly McNally, and I am the general manager here at Citrus and Salt.
Thank you. Could you please describe for the board briefly the policies and procedures that you've put in place regarding identification?
Our policy, we require all staff to check IDs prior to serving alcohol. And we also scan anyone that looks younger than 35. We also require a backup ID if they have a out-of-state driver's license, which is a new policy that we just put in. And then we also, after 9 p.m., we start scanning every single person that comes into the establishment, regardless of how old they are.
Thank you. And with out-of-state IDs, that backup identification, do you require a photo ID or just any sort of identification?
Photo ID.
And that's the new policy that you've put in place.
Yes.
And do you have a scanner system?
We do have a scanner system, yes. It is IntelliCheck. It's the same one that the Boston department recommended to us.
Thank you. And do all of your front of house staff have that scanning software on their phones or devices?
Yes, so it's either the manager on duty, the head server, and the head bartender all have it on their phones. And if anyone that's working that night sees somebody that is that looks younger than 35 and they want to scan, they just come to one of us to scan the ID.
Great. And you referenced some changes. Again, the change that you've put into place in terms of your policies and procedures is now, since this incident, that with out-of-state ID, photo identification is required as a backup, correct?
Yes, yes.
And what is your policy if one of your employees fails to put these, to abide by these rules and regulations?
It's immediate disciplinary action. We usually suspend them, but it depends on the circumstance. But the staff is definitely aware that we have a zero tolerance policy for this.
Thank you. And how many front of house staff were present on the night in question?
There was 7 front of the house members that were working that night.
So you were fully staffed?
Yes, I feel that we were adequately staffed, definitely.
Great. Thank you, Ms. McNally. And I just have a few questions for Eli Musa. Mr. Musa, could you please state your name and position?
My name is Elias Musa, and I'm a server at Citrus and Salt.
And how long have you worked at the restaurant?
For a little bit over a year.
And were you present on the night in question?
Yes, I was.
And were you serving the patron who was found to be underage?
Unfortunately, I was. She was at a table with 3 other people, and she presented a main ID that I believe to be valid.
And did you use the scanner as required by the policies of the restaurant?
Unfortunately, I made a mistake and I did not use the scanner.
And did you face any disciplinary action regarding this?
Yes, I did. I received a 2-week suspension, and I was also retrained. I have since then scanned every ID since the incident.
Eli or Kelly, did you have anything else to add?
I do want to just add that we are requiring all of our staff to do TIPS training. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, we apologize for being here today. We are not disputing any of the information in the police report or with Sergeant Detective Gallagher's testimony. this was a mistake. The licensee understands that their license is a privilege and it's their responsibility to ensure that no one under 21 possesses alcohol at any time in the licensed premise. As you heard, the licensee has taken steps to retain staff, implemented additional policies, and has a zero tolerance disciplinary policy. Additionally, the requirement of backup photo identification for out-of-state driver's licenses, we think also is important to implement. I will also submit in writing a copy of the revised policies that the licensee has put into place. Again, we apologize. We respectfully submit that given the extensive corrective action on the part of the licensee, a warning would be appropriate here. Should the board find that a suspension of the license is warranted, we would respectfully request that any such suspension be held in abeyance for a period of 6 months. And again, we apologize and for taking up your time, and we're here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chairwoman Joyce. Do you have any questions?
Just one question. Was the new policy put in place because of this incident as a corrective action?
The out-of-state IDs requiring backup identification, yes, that was put in place following this incident.
Okay, thanks. No questions for me. Commissioner Curran?
My only question is, Ms. McNally, how long have you been with this premises?
A little over 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The board will take this under advisement.
Thank you very much.
Calling item number 10, Symphony Exchange, Inc., doing business as the Ginger Exchange, located at 250 Huntington Ave. Date of the incident, November 12th, 2022. Persons under 21 in possession of alcohol in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 34A, 34C, and 64 to 64A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
I am. My name is Christine
Please identify
Chan.
yourself.
Yes,
Sorry.
my name is Christine Chan, and I'm the owner of Ginger Exchange.
Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I am.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, if need be.
Thank you very much. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You do.
I do.
Thank you. Detective Hernandez, if you could please proceed with the police report.
Good morning. I'll be reading again from a police report, which I wrote on Saturday, November 12th, 2022. Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the BPD License Premise Unit, conducted a license premise inspection of Ginger Exchange located 250 Huntington Ave in Boston. As detectives walked into the establishment, detectives there were 5 patrons still drinking alcoholic beverages. Detectives noticed these patrons looked young, and detectives asked them to produce identification to confirm their ages. Initially, all the patrons stated they were 21 years of age. Upon further questioning, it was determined that 4 out of the 5 patrons were under 21 years of age. The patrons were positively identified as Fiona Valancourt, Veronica Lechterman, Clara Duthold. And Miss Julian Stafford did have in her possession a valid Mass driver's license belonging to her sister, Colleen Stafford. All 4 individuals will be summoned to court for persons under 21 in possession of alcohol and false misuse of a registry document. The 5th patron, Mr. Hunter Garland, will be summoned to court for assisting persons under 21 with alcohol. Detectives brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Raymond Young. As a result of what detectives observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection 0599951 for persons under 21 years old in possession of alcohol on premise, and Mr. Young and accepted notice. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Chan, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes. My name is Christine. I'm the owner of the establishment. I'm very sorry to even have to be here, and to, I have teenagers, and so this, this hits hard. This definitely hits home. Just want to say that we're across the street from Symphony Hall. That's 90% of our business. Unfortunately, we are also close to Northeastern, and we have underage people apparently coming in with fake IDs. To try to get a drink. And so all these patrons that I want to mention that were ID'd, and all apparently showed false IDs. And so I from this incident, we have implemented a second form of ID. We've just actually just kind of blanket statement turned away a lot of college students, and sadly, I mean, after this whole after COVID, you know, it's any little business is, you know, especially we're here, we sell 90% to 95% of our business is from food and not from alcohol. We have it so that we can attract the show crowd. And so our intention is not to, you know, target to sell alcohol and make it any type of place for them to gather. We close at 10 o'clock. And so we don't have really sort of a night presence other than just to entertain the showgoers. So I'm, you know, unfortunately, this 5% of my business is causing a lot of stress and headache because I don't intend to serve anyone under 21. And so measures in place now, instead of a blanket statement of turning away anyone that looks young, we were doing a double form of ID. So photo ID and asking for passports. Mr. Raymond Min-Young has been with my establishment for 8 to 10 years now. And so he's been with us for a very long time. I did give him a leave of absence for a week as just as a suspension, as sort of reprimand for this incident, because we want to crack down. I've also emailed the License Commission begging for some sort of tool that we could use, we could have, whether it be a scanner, some professional scanner that we can loan from them, be a small business like mine. I don't have a lot of funds to afford a $2,000 scanner, but it sounds like there's some apps these days that we could use, but then those are faulty as well. So I did write out to the city asking for support.
We did get your email this week. Yes.
Yeah. Support for how we could basically feel supported in our efforts, at the same time deterring underage drinkers from coming into the establishment, because that is not my intention. That is not my focus in my business. And so, yeah, I'm sorry to be here, and I don't.
So it sounds like so I guess my question is, for out-of-state IDs, that's one of the things we really want to focus on.
Yes.
Is your policy now to ask for a backup?
And the only ones I can think of, the only ones that we accept are passports. So they will have to unfortunately present 2 forms of fake IDs if they are trying to really come in.
Okay. We did get your email asking for assistance. The board we don't have our own scanners. I am not aware of what the apps cost, but I can connect you with the small business group at the City of Boston to see if there's something there where they can help you. We don't have scanners to give out. I don't even have my own scanner, but the licensed premise unit, the detective and the sergeant, they might have more information about what these things cost. I'm just unaware, but I think it's very important to have a written policy in place and to train your staff to look for signs of fake IDs, and especially with the out-of-state ones, to ask for a backup ID. Sergeant or detective, do you have any insight on what these apps cost? I have no idea.
We've talked to a lot of the bar owners, and the prices seem to be all over the board. We went with what the ABCC uses. I know on their website and newsletter, they do recommend several different types of scanners. Ours is a download on the iPhone. I know there's a flat rate, and then there's a per ID rate also. So, you know, the best is, you know, take a look at the ABCC website. I know we've dealt with some places that go out and have sent, say, $1,000 in a scanner. Myself and Detective Hernandez have showed up with a stack of fake IDs, provided them to the premise, and every ID we've given them that we know is fake has gone through their scanner. So you really got to be careful of what you buy. And I would refer them to the State Alcohol Beverage Commission for some guidance on this. And like I said, the prices are all over the board.
It sounds like there's not a big percentage of your business that is reliant on alcohol sales. So we can send you some contacts from small business, but it's true, some of these scanners you could invest in, and then a fake ID scans as real. So I think the best defense is to ask for backup ID.
Right.
And again, out-of-state IDs, you just really can't rely on it. Commissioner Saxon, or Commissioner Curran, do you have any questions?
None at this moment, thank you.
Maybe just a comment from what I've seen, and I've tried to dig deeper on this. The app that Boston Police have been using, I haven't seen very good evidence that they've actually scanned fake IDs that have come up good. I think a couple of premises have kind of tried to allege that, but they haven't quite proven it in my mind. I think there's been some issues with that. So as far as I'm concerned, it has been working pretty well, the one that the Boston Police have been using. But I would also advise, like the chair has advised before, that we can't rely on that completely. So it's just one of the tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
The other thing, just a reminder, asking for a passport or mass ID or veterans license, veterans ID. Those are the types of IDs that protect you under the statute. So that's a very good thing to do, is to ask for those.
Yes.
And then I think that is all I had on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Board will take this matter under advisement as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And calling item number 11, Big Night Venues Boston One LLC, doing business as Red Lantern, located at 41 to 45 Stanhope Street, date of the incident November 12th, 2022. Service of more than 2 alcoholic drinks to one person at a time in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. Who's present on behalf of the licensee?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Kristen Scanlon for the licensee. Signed on with us today is Charlie Kane, who is the Director of Security. And Jillian Kling, who is Director of Compliance as well, is observing.
Great, thank you very much. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher.
Thank you. And are there any other individuals of firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this afternoon?
Detective Eddie Hernandez, if needed.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Kling, if you are planning to testify, if we could have you on camera to be sworn in, could you all please raise your right hand to those who are planning to testify? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Sergeant Gallagher, you can please proceed with the police report.
Good afternoon. On 11/12/2022 at 11:03 p.m., Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez, signed the license premise unit, and conducted a license premise inspection of the Red Lantern at 39 Stanhope Street. The premise for monitoring the sale separate occasions of 2 different bartenders serving one patron 3 alcohol drinks at a time. This was brought to the attention of the manager, who in turn spoke to the bartenders. As a result, what was observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice number 059953 to the Red Lantern for the service of more than 2 alcoholic drinks to one person at a time, which was against mass prohibited practices. Mr. Anthony Priscilla signed for and accepted the notice. Those are the facts of that evening.
Thank you. Attorney Scanlon, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, please. Just one question for Sergeant Detective Gallagher. Was staff cooperative with you at all times that evening on the premises?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, members of the board, if I may, due to the limited operating days lately at Red Lantern, largely because of staffing issues there, when the licensee hosts special events, which this was that evening, the licensee frequently invites staff up from their Connecticut locations to help with staffing to cover these events. This was that particular situation in this instance with the bartenders who served the 3 drinks at a time to patrons. Unfortunately, they were unaware of this particular nuance of Massachusetts law. When BPD observed the incident, I believe they alerted the manager, who immediately instructed the bartenders that of the rule and that you can't do that. So please cease doing that for future events, not only from that evening, but anything else that they cover in Massachusetts as well. As far as disciplinary action that was taken by the licensee with the staff, the employee was written up. And as a result of the incident, the licensee has amended, in particular, pre-shift instructions with this rule as a reminder and emphasis, especially when they're bringing employees in from out of state. So unfortunately, it is an incident, obviously, that did occur, that Sergeant Detective did witness, but something that they will prevent from happening going forward and make sure all staff, whether they're local or not, are very well aware of.
Thank you very much. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
Not for me. Thank you.
None for me either. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are all of the items before the board today that will adjourn this morning and now afternoon's hearing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.